G'day hobbyists, it's been a long time since I've uploaded a video, so I finally had some time on my hands, so I figured I'd show you some of my dwarf miners that I'm painting and the technique that I'm using for them, overbrushing. Now, I like to get armies painted and get on the tabletop, so I've made some previous videos, not all of them were very good, but about dry brushing, washing, selecting a paint scheme. This is just going to be overbrushing hair, specifically dwarf beards, which is quite easy to do that too. They're very textured, they have the right sort of style for you to just run the brush along and pick out the detail. And you don't want to be taking ages to highlight the strands of hair individually with the point of the brush. I'm using the flat of the brush and dragging it along so it goes quickly, you get a lot done. And well, let's get to it. Okay, so here I am doing some overbrushing, which is very similar to dry brushing, which is how I did the metal on these dwarf miners. Now, quite simply, you take a regular brush, like this, put a bit of paint on it, like so, and just wipe a bit off onto your towel, paper, whatever. Get your model, and because of this highly textured hair, which is what I'm using the overbrushing technique on, just carefully drag it along the texture. You don't want to push too hard because depending on how wet the paint is, it'll spill and spread over the model, and you don't want that with overbrushing. You want to have just enough to leave a mark or an impression on what you're drawing the brush over to give you good coverage, but not too much. And that gives you your highlight. Now these beards that I'm painting, I've gone for a 3-process technique where I base coat them, then I typically wash them, and then I highlight. And that gives you sort of 3 tones, which is more than enough for tabletop standard. In fact, these brown beards, I'll probably get away with just 2 tones. And just got to carefully drag it over. Again, don't push too hard. And even if you slip up a little bit, hair has a bit of that rough texture anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. And if you're looking at it from certain distance, tabletop, well, looking at it from a tabletop, you won't even notice too much mistakes like that. So sorry about the focus. This is an autofocus webcam. I'm not a very professional video taker or videographer. I mostly do this for enjoyment, help a few other people out with some simple techniques. I like to just get armies painted and on the table. Some people say my techniques are a bit more time consuming, going too far, putting too much detail on my tabletop standard. But I feel like these are some effective techniques that give you pretty good results quickly. So this isn't all that different from highlighting. It's a fairly quick way to get your highlights done without carefully, painstakingly taking the point of your brush along the texture like that. Like you might be able to get good results like that. You can get good results like that, but that's more painstaking. And as you can see, it takes a lot longer. Whereas if you just carefully drag it over, like so, you get some good results quite quickly and easily. And when you've got a whole regimen of these on the tabletop, you won't even, it'll look fine. So that's what I'm doing. Sometimes you've got to go over it once or twice, because the amount of paint you're using in an overbrush isn't a lot. So you sometimes got to go over it a few times to get a solid finish. And most of these miners that I'll show you in a sec, all their stuff's just that sort of 3-process or 2 processes to paint, because I didn't want to be too intensive. I could highlight the leather again, I could highlight the cloth again, give it more detail, better highlighting, but that's just unnecessary. And the sort of time it takes to paint these, it's quite easy. It'll look great on the tabletop and doesn't take too long. It seems to take a lot longer in these videos because I'm always adjusting, trying to make sure I get something in focus. And come on, focus. There we go. Trying to get it in focus and moving and worrying about checking the camera. There's more experienced video takers out there and YouTube sort of painters and instructors, but yeah, this is more of a hobby thing. You just want a quick video on how to do a technique or a rough advice and explanation on a technique. This is fine. I mean, a lot of the stuff you work out is just through practice and experience. Like you have to learn how brushes play over the model. Like if you push in point first, the brush sort of spreads over the model, or you can slide it along lengthwise like this, and it tends to just pick up the detail like so. And the less paint you have on the model, it sort of picks up on more extreme finer detail that you really press harder onto and get into contact with. And if you have more paint or more water, then it tends to wet and spill onto the model all over it, which you don't always want. Sometimes you want to just get a lot of paint onto base coat, but that's not what I'm doing. So I only want a little bit of paint and light pressure on the model with the brush held sort of at an angle to it. There we go. All right. That looks pretty good. So I think we'll call that one highlight done. Okay, so here are some pictures of the dwarves stage by stage. This was after my first session of painting, about 4 hours. That's the rear shot. And onto the group shot. I'm very bad at editing, so sorry that these aren't shorter or snappier. So that's the group shot of them after one session of painting, 4 hours. And this is after the next session, so I think another 4 or so hours, maybe a bit less. An individual shot to get a closer look at that. I just have highlighted the leather, metal's all done. Well, the metal was already done for the first session, but now I've done wax, fire, cloth more. Rear shot again, basing's done. And now the final group shot. There we go. Eyes been done, fire's done, the beards are done. Last session was fairly small, maybe less than an hour or so, and his individual shots, so you get a good look at him in that. And this should look pretty good as a unit. All the mistakes won't really show at the end. And thanks for watching, guys.